$145.02. And we see rental income of $1,000. We see 2 note payments there. And then you add that up to equal that total number there in total revenue. Okay, so year to date, you see we're standing at $637,083. You know, we're also already at 91.64% of what we budgeted revenue-wise. Okay, so we're going to really exceed our revenue projection because we budgeted at $674,000, which was a conservative budget. If you turn the page to page 2, you look at the current period, starting at the top, that's your salary stuff that has not changed. That's all the same there. You see some office supplies, travel and training, fuel, basically same expenses we've had, some legal, liability insurance. No, that doesn't be. Actually, that was paid, so I do have one question about that. You remember when that's paid?
Oh,
Was that early July?
Last,
or June?
it should have been.
Well, it should have been credited in June, so there's a question mark on that one. So make a note there, Tommy, we need to find out about that because the liability insurance for D&O, directors and officers, was paid in June. We need to check on that, okay? Let's see here. One other thing I noticed, you know, as I was going through this afternoon, we haven't received the bill yet for the debt service. Now, has it been paid by the city? Because it's due, I'm sure. Our last debt service payment was in March of 2014. And then our next debt service payment is this September 1 of 2014. Yeah, there's nothing that we have received. And as I pulled the schedule out and have it here if you want to view it tonight, I've got to get with Connie. And of course, you know, that might be a big part of that change in accounting office. But still, when a debt is due, a debt is due. So you wonder, well, how's the city handling that part of it? Anyway, I just want to make that note. We are going to have some debt payments coming out. One probably rather quickly in the month of July because it's due. And then one due the 1st of September. Okay.
I think I also remember under account 60910 under contractual, we did another rental payment for the office lease and all. And that doesn't show another current period. We're only 50% paid through the year, so.
We pay in quarters.
Yeah.
So where's the third quarter then?
Well, let's see, where are we at now?
Under
Office
contractual?
lease? Okay, yeah, 3,600.
So we should have paid the third quarter. And I thought I remembered signing a check.
No, third quarter's gonna be due this month.
Okay.
Because I talked to Connie about that.
Yeah.
She's gonna bill us for it this month.
They wound up,
Okay.
basically.
We've paid only 2 quarters.
Okay.
Okay, so the third is gonna be due in July. You'll see
Okay.
that on the next thing, okay? So
Thank
that
you.
is okay. But on the debt, the payment that will probably need to be paid right away is gonna be in the range of $27,000 to $28,000. That's what I calculated, okay? And then the next one will be the bigger check. Okay. If you go on to the next page, you'll see beer warehouse, you'll see some maintenance. Tommy, do you want to add to what that maintenance was for in the month of June?
Well, we had we had some damage from vandalism and so we put in floodlights, and then somebody broke the handle on one of the doors. We had to have that, buy a new one, have that replaced, and then we had the AC checked before we started the summer, and they charged that, for that. There weren't any major things, but about 4 or 5 pounds of Freon. So we're running cool in the beer warehouse now.
Okay, one of the things I do want to note go back to page 2, if you would, please. And it'd be the second section of stuff. It says supplies and materials, advertising, marketing. I have asked them to move that because that was $25,000 of the $28,977 year-to-date number. $25,000 of that was for that entrance. We discussed that at the last meeting. Connie was out ill, but anyway, she is gonna adjust that because that really needs to go in streets maintenance for the business park. I think Tommy originally said, well, you know, we can put it there if we need to, just because of showing, you know, a good budget and staying within budgeted areas. But the reality is that I want that to show this is what we truly spent on the business, the industrial park, you know, streets, curbs, et cetera. Even though it's over that particular budget, at least it reflects, this is really what we spent here this year, okay? So we're gonna move that 25,000 to that section.
That's Hogan's driveway.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, our contribution.
And that's been discussed with her. Then, of course, you've got just routine maintenance, routine utilities at the business, at the depot. And then you've got the Veterans Park, nothing spent there this month. So, if you turn to page 9, you have showing what our current budget was for expenditures. You show what our year-to-date actual is. And so it shows you that, you know, we've only spent about 40% of the budget, so that $298,750 number reflects, you know, that's how much we lack to even spend in the budget. And so our sales tax projections are probably going to end up being $825,000, somewhere in there for the total for the year. And we told the city council when we proposed this budget that we would be, even if we spent everything in the budget, we were still going to be below what our revenue totals were. So that's a good thing, and considering what we have to do with streets, you know, it was good that we were conservative, and we have been conservative. But I do want to mention that I do think, like in the area of advertising and marketing, we could probably do a little more there. I think that Tommy, you mentioned even looking at some brochures and stuff like that, and some things like that. And then some of our signs in this community are looking pretty poor. And I know that at one time, Andy, we talked about the chamber stepping up and doing what they need to do maybe for their half, but I don't even know where they're at in any of that move or anything like that. So I really think it's probably going to come down to this group making some investment in some signs coming into this town again, because they need to be redone. And, you know,
Well,
it needs to
we
look
also
nice.
need to push for code enforcement on 97 coming from Pleasanton into town. That whole stretch looks like crap
Yeah.
most of the time. The hospital area is never mowed down. The place where Andy Hunter used to live is never mowed
Right.
down in that corner. It's horrible.
That's a fire hazard right there, man. That's a,
Right
catches
next to
on
the
fire,
fire
it's gonna
department.
take that house down pretty quick. But, you know, you look at C Street, at one time, and I know this is kind of getting a little out of the financial realm here, but I wanted to point this out. At one time, there were some designs done on a nice entrance there at C Street, and it would be really cool if we had a better entry to the downtown area. It's great that we're seeing some of these facades being improved. That's a good thing. But we are going to need the city's help of enforcing some of these sign issues on that entrance, because it's looking pretty crummy right there at 181 and C Street. And, you know, I think that's really an enforcement issue on how we can do this. And I've asked about a sign ordinance, and I keep getting told, well, it's coming, but I don't see why it's really that difficult, because you could simply just go to a friendly city of yours, a friend, and write a copy of the sign ordinance. I mean, that's all you gotta do, you know? But anyway, so total revenue, as you saw, was $72,825. There's a couple of spreadsheets in your packet, and that's what the total amount is. And then we have, if you return the next page, you'll see some of the checks written, and then you'll see a total down there of $6,004.42. I do want to point out that if you take that number and add it to our payroll cost, then that will total your monthly total of $12,000 some odd dollars for the month, okay? Because when you look at the current period, and you're gonna see a number that we spent a little over $12,000 this month, they don't provide the payroll on this report, okay? And so, if you took the payroll expense, add it to this number here, then it's gonna total what we had for the month. Okay? This is just kind of a little report so you see, well, who did this go through?
Kind of a check summary inclusive of the payroll.
Right.
Johnny, we have building ground maintenance.
What's that?
Johnny, we have
That's AC.
Junior,
At the
Junior,
warehouse.
it's the boy that does AC work. Chamaco de.
That's it. We're in a good financial position, so good place to be. Any questions?
L&M is high as it is because Freddie waited until he had 8 cleanings at $50 a piece to turn it in. So we won't see, the next months he will have caught up. And the balance of that 480 off of the 400 is weed eating and cleaning up that has to be done, about every 2 months around the beer warehouse to make it presentable.
While we're in the beer warehouse, maybe, has anything been done?
Well, I don't know if I should bring that up or not about.
Well, you can ask, you had a question asked, but I think you can discuss.
Okay. I approached Henrietta 2 or 3 months ago, and I said, the only thing according to you, the city's broke, but I think that my board would look favorably upon getting the surplus properties that we have that have no value, getting those off the books, and also getting out of the rental business, the beer warehouse. And I said, the only thing the city can use to trade for the beer warehouse, and we have, I was flabbergasted, we own 927 square feet of the beer warehouse. The rest of it is in the railroad right-of-way, which turns into the city's right-of-way. And so, we had Curtis, Danny Curtis, do a market analysis last year. And so I used that value of $60,000 and said, Henrietta, here's the numbers, here's the way it comes out. I don't know if the board will approve it or not, but we got to start somewhere. Well, she, after about a month, she countered back at $55,000.
But what you were talking about, the.
Was free rent.
Free rent, yeah.
And I was saying, we'll trade you the beer warehouse and these surplus properties for free rent. And, because that's all you have to deal with. And so I got up to $60,000, which is free rent, was 7.5 years of free rent. She countered to 55, and that's where it's been since. I was trying to get something subject to board approval and council approval, but we will have an ongoing expense for rent. These are a nice office, so if we could eliminate those surplus properties, get out of the rental business, and we'll cut our rent expense for the next 7 or 8 years. That's kind of what I'm talking to her about. It just takes, forever to get some sort of feedback, but.
I think I'm a little leery of, and we need to visit with Pat Wagner. If we, for instance, Gate Park, I think the number is $72,000 that we have on the book for that, and all these other properties that we have on the book. If we turn around and, quote, sell that for a loss, it's gonna reflect on us as a loss on our financial, which could impact our ability to borrow and things. So we need to be careful on doing something like that until we get with Pat to how she would book that. And actually, what he's proposing, if we could get some rental, it doesn't, as he told me, and I concur, it doesn't have inflationary adjustments, so you could adjust these numbers to cover, quote, the loss. But if we have 72,000 on that, we have 60,000 on the beer warehouse and the depot and all like that, we're talking probably a pretty wide gap. We need to really visit with Pat Wagner before we go anything, but I'd hate it to impact our financial, showing $100,000 loss on the property, and we get ready to borrow money pocket, just saying out there for anything. Retention ponds or buy more land, it affects our ability to borrow, it wouldn't be good. So we need to visit with Pat on that, maybe you two could visit with her and just glean that through her. Board had decided we can't discuss sales tonight, but just get a little more information to maybe put it on the agenda next time. Well, did that answer your question without it getting too far?
It sort of does, because, well, like I say, I know Curtis has been hanging on in there, trying to do whatever he can, but of course, from our standpoint, we can't sell it, we don't have any
Yeah.
parking.
We're stuck between,
And-
and I told Henrietta that, I've way before the last 4 or 5 months, trying to get her to take something to the council would say, we'll buy you all, which they don't have money, or let us buy you, or let's joint market it, and I don't think the council ever heard that.
Here's naturally, there wasn't a survey done when they bought it, we couldn't find one, so we got a survey prepared after this fact, and I pull this out and show you. You can see substantially, most of the building, not even.
Now, railroad still own any more of that, or is it still, where they can bring the railroad?
They can actually come back with a 2-year notice, they can take it back. So it is the city subject to the right of reversing by the railroad.
If they would say.
Which is
forever.
Or they could come along and say, what we did is
They
suspend,
said go ahead.
we're gonna do that all the way to Provo.
Then
That
that's
could
right,
happen.
and they can take it back.
Oh, well, that
I
answers
wish
the
they
question.
would, honestly. I'd like to see.
Well,
the railroad
maybe
go
that's
back.
what
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
be doing, is see if we pick
Boy,
one of
you
those
know,
This is
possibilities to go to the railroad.
Take all their stuff to Pleasanton. or
Man, talk about a business park or industrial park.
The input work.
We have rail.
Yeah, so right now, we found out, that Curtis suspected, it's even worse than he suspected.
Yeah.
Any other information on the treasury report? If not, I'd like to have a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the treasurer's.
We have a motion, to have a second? We have a motion, second. Any further discussion on the treasurer's report? Other than comment outstanding?
Did a fine job, Jeffrey.
Well,
Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Then come to committee reports. So Jason, how about for finance report?
yes, Tommy and I have talked about, put together a timeline for the budget. So I'll be calling together the finance committee to propose a budget for our next FEDC meeting, okay? Then, which will be in August. We will propose that to the city council the second meeting they have in the month of August. If then at that meeting, there's some issues that they want us to revisit, then that gives us the opportunity to meet again in September, and then to propose at the final the final city council meeting in September, which we've done before, to where they would have the final approval. So our hope is that maybe we would get it approved in August with good communication. Otherwise, we still have that to fall back on in September.
Good.
That's the plan. Other than that, I have no other report on finance.
Personnel? Okay, we're gonna go to executive officer's report.
I'll just hit these fast because you all have a narrative, but had a good conference up in Waco. This was rural economic development. Made a lot of good contacts, and it was very worthwhile. I sat in on discussions about tourism as economic development and rural housing, broadband, internet, and how that can be used as a magnet to get companies that need broadband in. The problem is that for Floresville, AT&T has a line running along 181, but to get off of that, they're treading into Verizon's territory, and so I'm keeping up with the director for broadband, just trying to see if anything we can do to skin the cat. But anyway, it was a good session. I notified the people in here, the school district, the chamber, Wilson County News, and 5 or 6 of our businesses in the industrial park about a job fair, and on June the 24th. And I think some of the companies actually were vendors, and basically they had about 425 people at the event. So it was a very much needed event, and the people out of the industrial park, appreciated me telling them to get in touch with San Antonio Express if they wanted to be a vendor and pay and get set up so they could, they could try to find more employees. On June the 12th, we finally got the documents signed with our trade with FEDC and Laredo Hydrotech, and which encompasses hammer isolation and hammer exploration. So that's signed. We have, I got a title policy on the 5.99 acres. So we have that in the file, and we have a special warranty deed signed, so that matter is taken care of. I met the other day with a very reliable prospect to put a bakery in Floresville downtown. The fellow is a master baker, 3rd generation baking business, and I've spotted some locations for him to get back with the owners, put them in touch, and right now I think he's looking. And I talked to John, whose family owns the Farmer Bakery next to Olivia's, and this guy's needs are pretty general. I mean, obviously he needs gas, electric, water. He wants to rent, not buy, and he said, it came to me because everybody he talked to wanted to sell. And so I've got John that works for the city, whose family owns that spot next to Olivia, to give the prospect to call and see if they could work out something, and that was as of today, so. This guy's really inventive. He does consulting work all over the US, does consulting work for HEB, and I think what he wants to do is set up the commercial baking shop, and then in the front have retail. And that may even go to, you know, like sit-down pizza or something like that, but he's really innovative and is really excited about Floresville. He sees downtown Floresville very much like we would see the hill, you know, a town that has small businesses and stuff that people can come in and visit for the day or spend the night in like Fredericksburg or something, and he feels like that it's gonna happen, and he wants to be part of it, so.
Is that old shop big enough for what he wants to do?
I don't know, I haven't been inside.
Not that big. I mean, that bakery smell when Mr. Trevino would put that French bread in, oh my God, the whole town smells so good.
Well, I just had to, I mean, his first choice would be Ray's Bank Building, and I thought, well, if I just mention it, maybe Ray can smell the baked goods, and he might turn that nice office building into the downstairs into a retail, but we've got some other places.
I'll pass that torch down, I'll send you.
I didn't say you'd give him free rent or anything. I thought, man, that's be a nice, everlasting smell. But anyway, I think he's dedicated enough to Floresville that we'll find him a spot. And he wants downtown. He said, I'm totally turned off of 181. That's not my business. You know, he wants a niche bakery and everything from breads to desserts to cookies to everything. So I had a meeting the same day with the owner of Skate Ranch. Just talk, you know, at first when he approached me, he wanted to see if we would incentivize him with money. When I told him we didn't have any, he said, I still want to meet. And so we had a really good meeting, and I think there's some things there that he can offer us, and he's a marketer. I mean, he's deciding, you know, that say, practice races don't make enough money, but music festivals do. And I guess, I don't know that any of us in here are mud people, but he said that's a real profitable, mud racing is very profitable, and lots of people like to get muddy on their bikes and stuff like that.
And when you
So
say
he's constantly taking
Skate
that.
Ranch, is it,
Huh?
does it go by that name, or is
I'm
that
sorry.
a typo?
No, it's cycle.
Cycle Ranch.
I'm sorry.
I'm in the same thing.
I thought I was trying to figure out what this was, I haven't seen this one yet.
Sorry. I don't know
Maybe we got a
why.
race in the mud, we're escape.
No, this is cycle, I'm sorry.
Back to the
Um,
future.
And then I emailed Eric Rodriguez last week, and I told him that his deadline was coming up tomorrow for financial approval, and asked him if he, you know, could give me anything to tell you about tonight. But then he called me today and said that they still don't have financial approval, that he's got some family medical issues now. I think his wife had 8-hour surgery or something, and he couldn't sit down and discuss it any further. And I said, well, I don't have it on the agenda, so, you know, we'll move forward until next month, and then it'll be on the agenda. That's it.
Back to Cycle Ranch real quick, from me. Are they looking to expand something, or? what are they doing?
Cycle Ranch?
Yeah,
Um,
because, I mean, they have a big operation already.
you know, I didn't come away with anything except that he wants to kind of find out what's going on in Floresville, and for us to hear his needs, for us to hear, and, you know, there are things that he's trying to do that I can see where, some contacts, you know, could help him in his business. I don't know if they're qualified, but he said, I've got a great blade man, and we would, you know, like to help you all build the retention ponds, and, you know, so I don't know. It was a first conversation, and we'll go from there.
Well, one thing I will say is that we probably all need to do a better job of partnering with successful business and making sure that they're recognized. And, you know, that racetrack right there, I have a good friend of mine, he's a fellow board member of a state association I serve on in Austin, and he's a motocross racer. He attends motocross events all over the United States and world. And he said, this is absolutely one of the best tracks in the country right here.
Wow.
And, you know, it's tops in Texas. So my point is that as part of our marketing, when we look at these marketing brochures or anything like that, if we're not motocross racers and if we are not spectators, we don't know that. But when we add that as a promotional piece in the deal, people go, well, I didn't know there was a cycle facility down there.
Yeah,
2 weeks ago in Abilene, that town, I've got how many thousand people, not that large, I never found the town, but the track there, just contingency money was over about $2,500 from all the different businesses. If you won the race, which paid X amount, just everybody from the bingo parlor to everything there would pay an extra $200 to the winner that day. You know, it was,
Wow.
It was amazing, and the turnout of people were really
Well,
amazing.
and he said, you know, on music festivals and race weekends, you know, he said, I gotta tell you, we have a big impact on Floresville, and I want people to know that. I mean, we, you know, from hotels to food, to, you know, to gas, everything else. And, you know, he's a marketing person, he wants to, and, you know, once we sat down and talked, there were some things, you know, like has, but wants to improve on, kind of a spa for the girlfriends or the wives that aren't interested in what their boyfriend or husband is doing, but they want to come along. And so he's got massages in there and have your nails and things done. I mean, to cater to the women. He's a pretty smart, and he's doing night racing, which, and he just told me that he bought 75 acres next to the track for what I could get out of him, about 10,000 an acre. And he said, well, I knew what I could pay because I get it back in parking fees. And so he said, the parking for events pays for my 75 acres of land. And so he wanted to get into, I don't know, just a bunch of different things, farming and so forth. So he's got a good mind. It was interesting to visit with him.
Tommy, what is our capacity in hotel rooms now? If the oil guys are taking up most of those rooms, what is our real capacity? Do we know?
No, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why Henrietta wasn't here tonight, but I'm just not sure that it's 100% occupancy all the time now. Yeah, I think there are vacancies, and I don't know if that's a shift from exploration to production or just what, but I think there are more vacancies than we've had before. And, but, you know, he has a park out there for RVs and, you know, has electric and gets them into
That's a big division.
you know, I mean, he's.
He keeps them out there. He keeps them
uh,
out, he keeps them out there.
And he's very concerned about noise to the neighbors, and, you know, he said, you know, we could have events 24 hours a day, but I don't wanna create a noise nuisance, so, I mean, it's a little bit different business guy, in that, you know, when we met, he's got flip-flops on, and trousers that look like he slept in them, and a shirt hanging out that he looked like he slept in it, but, you know, the guy's a multimillionaire. I mean, he knows, he's smart.
That's the way those racers are, right, David?
You can't judge them by their clothes. Yeah, what, I don't know about their total home they came up in.
Yeah.
But he was a Chamber of Commerce business of the year, this past year, so.
Yeah.
What possibilities could we present or offer up to business people in town to meet with somebody like him and share the mind,
Right.
the thoughts going on?
And I've given that some thought. And
Chamber you do.
I would like to, you know, plan this right, but I've been involved in like once a week to have a breakfast meeting that really isn't, you know, somebody sponsored with sweet rolls and coffee. You know, it's not like a sit-down full breakfast, but it's just going around and sharing, here's what's going on in my business, here's what's going on in mine, and suddenly, you know, the councilman that's a masseuse, finds out that the guy at
It's
the.
a networking opportunity.
Yeah, that the Cycle Ranch needs more people, and he says, "Oh, I'll get you 5 more people out there," and suddenly his business increases and theirs. So I want to try to set up something like that. It's just, you know, it's always who's going to show up. You know, you can have those, but you got to have some sort of draw that makes people say, you know, I'm going to go by there and I'm going to give it 45 minutes or an hour. And once they're there and there's payback, then that motivates them to keep coming. But
Most of our draw, when we go to an out-of-town race, hotel rooms cheaper if you're racing at this racetrack. Like here, you always see dirt bike people that bringing their bikes in there at Easy Stop, you know, HEB, all of these places, and they always give some type of discount, trying to get people that are going out to this track to race to either stay at the hotel, go to this restaurant, go to this, you know, whatever's going on.
yeah,
And,
he was telling me he had Bread McCombs as a sponsor, and Budweiser. I mean, he's, you know,
He's
he's,
advertising.
Yeah. And it's interesting, my wife and I guess it was Saturday, went into San Antonio, and when just as we were coming down 181 heading that way, there's this, you know, huge black pickup truck with a motocross tied down on the back, and we, you know, went back and forth in the traffic, and I lost him by the downtown exit, but he lives in San Antonio and drives out here to race his bike, and then he drives back in.
Oh, it's
And it's like, I had a fun weekend, and
Saturday mornings, if you're up here, it's a big, you know, you can see a lot of bikes coming down on back pickups going out to ride.
yeah.
But
Before we kind of moving on a little bit, realistically, I think that during the 2 years that I already served, coming up on this year, if we kind of worked on a path, kind of get things, I really see that this committee moving forward should be looking forward thinking instead of having to do retroactive thinking and all. So things like that are gonna be great. Yes, I've used to motocross, run this track, it's a great track and things like that. It does have a lot of attention, it's a lot, big impact. So I think the next group that comes in here, the committee, Devlin unit, really need to start looking forward for the two, that timing for this. Any other questions on his report before we move forward? If not, we're gonna move to new business. Item 5 is Mary Helen Teakin, is back from Arkansas. I didn't say rest, it's refresh. She wore out, but we don't need that. Number 5. Number 6, engineer letter dated July the 9th, contains anticipated schedule. I think if you scroll down behind the minutes there, you can see, Larry Heimer's proposal, what he's looking at on there. He also, in the last 2 pages, we talked about the construction. What we're looking at is on, Ray, Tommy and I met with Larry, and what we're kind of done is looking at, we're looking at coming in here with a minimum of 10 inches base that we talked about. We're looking at the intersection of Cardinal and Rancho Grande, paving that we discussed in here. Something else we talked about is where we have, a couple of these major companies where they're already coming out of there with big trucks, maybe going in there and putting paving in that, because if we don't, concrete in that, so we don't do that, in those areas. Again, as you talked about, it'll tear those roads up with just asphalt. They also have now, it's a chip seal, if you go in there, 2 1-inch base layers of super seal, is what the county's using, anything like that, to do an asphalt. Maybe coming in there, it's a little bit cheaper, so move the money from asphalting to super seal, chip seal, and using that to put the cement in there. So that's the way you propose to come up with it. It meets NRC's, all the county specs at this time. It's a way to beef up those areas that, in it. We're also looking at sleeving, trying to think ahead, sleeving the intersections there for future utility pass-throughs and things of that nature, to try to think ahead a little bit. Also sleeve up there at the house coming across the Rancho Grande, to sleeve that for water and different things. So we're,
the amount of, base, you know, I think I read 2 inches and.
minimum of 10
The
inches.
base, yeah, the base, but,
It's
the
2
asphalt.
1-inch seal, chip super seal.
But Ram and I talked this week, and I think he's got a good idea. I don't know if engineer-wise it'll work, but what about putting thickness as a priority in certain parts of the road system? Like Rancho Grande is gonna have heavy truck traffic no matter what. And maybe we do, instead of 2 inches, maybe we do 4 inches or 5 inches or something. But like down East Cardinal, where we got Nate Rocket Services and all that, they don't have heavy equipment.
Yeah.
And so maybe we could cut back, you know, to a standard thickness, but then have a heavier, or a thicker road system for gas frac and the main drag.
I think.
And I don't know if,
You're talking the top part or more base, because
No.
usually the chip seals could keep water from the base.
Yeah. No, we're talking about the top portion, you know. I think with the base, it'll be fine. I think it will hold, but what I'm worried about is the top, you know, portion of it. If we leave it kind of thin, you know, these monsters that are out there, you know, in due time, they're gonna start cracking. And once they start cracking and, you know, you start, you know, getting potholes in the metal, you know, it's gonna be heck to.
Well, I'm not an engineer, but from what I understand, it doesn't matter how thick you put the asphalt or chip seals.
It's on the
It's a base underneath it that comes to support the heavy trucks and all. So you could, because it gets hot and it flexes anyway, because it's not a rigid concrete. So even if you want to go 3 inches or 4 inches, you're still gonna have the same issue. If that base underneath it gives away, it's still gonna be the same pothole. Now, that's what my understanding is. I'm gonna tell you again, I'm not an engineer. That's a question I'd wanna ask.
And I think, Drew, and what Randy's talking about also, is this time they're gonna compact it, so the base that's there, they never packed it right. There was never any compaction test done on it. So it's gonna, you know, if you put it right, but your thickness on the bottom is the board knows that. For sure.
Well, whatever we do in concrete, we just need to make sure that that four-way intersection, that the concrete, of course, extends out far enough to where when that truck's turning, the back wheels are on
Back wheels on
concrete.
concrete.
No, that's just.
And that's just, you know,
Yes,
I know that's
correct.
common sense, but my gosh, you know, sometimes that doesn't always come out.
So was running the pipes under the road.
Yeah.
And they're talking about even for, hydrotech, flood, and, freeway and all, they were talking about making that also, not just where you pull out, it's gonna extend, you didn't know, they're gonna run, it's probably gonna be more than 100 feet, you know, to make sure it got the turning radius. He said they had computer programs to tell them how far they need to make that to ascertain that it would be sufficient. Now, then, we can go in and look for a quote, which when you start doing that, you really are gonna, if we start putting more, it's gonna increase the cost exponentially, but I really don't know if it's gonna give us any structural. That would be a question you just have to ask Larry.
Base is
It's basically the key to the whole thing, though.
and how well they compact it down.
But if they get a solid rigid base, and they have 2 inches, and the base doesn't give, the 2 inches will last, except for heavy turning things, and we're trying to address that.
It was also decided in the meeting, I was pushing the road and the detention ponds, and basically, Andy said, you know, our priority ought to be, first priority ought to be the road, and then after that, then we turn Larry loose on construction documents to do the detention pond. So I backed off with Blue Steer and, you know, anybody interested until we can have Larry do up document drawing and so forth.
I wasn't really wasn't mine. That is what the county has told us that they wanted our priority to be. In the meeting with Paul, he said, I want to get the road in there. So, I believe we've heard that they want the road first done. If you have any questions on that schedule, hopefully next time, or maybe even before that, if y'all are receptive, if Larry gets us his amendment to, his contract to draw up all of this, and also can bring in for us to go ahead and approve the bid format and all, we might be trying to expedite this instead of having to wait so much, because it's now on us.
We need
got
to
everything.
expedite it.
Well, the other thing is that, you know, I think on the dates that I saw, it's gonna be, some of this work is gonna be during winter.
Yeah.
You
You
know.
know, do asphalt in winter.
And
Chips and
Yeah.
And, you know, and I don't know.
I don't think that, what if you see on number 7 there, construction November 3rd through May the 8th, naturally, they're probably gonna have to do some of the paving, if they do pave a half or something, but hopefully, the paving would be done when it's warmer weather. We don't know what kind of winter we're gonna have either, so, but we need to pave it when the weather is warm, is that all?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Good comment, good point. Any other questions regarding that? Again, it's not kind of a, we don't have anything to do, consideration and action and approving, but we might. Then there's nothing else, number 7, do you have a check
Yeah, I've had a collection problem. We've gone to an all-cash basis now for Beer Warehouse, but back when we were taking checks, this lady, it gave me a $200 check and used, you know, the system really is, on Friday, they pay me, and then I give them the keys once they pay me, and then they can go in and decorate, have their event, they bring the keys back Monday. Well, in this Friday, she paid me with a check. I thought everything was fine, and then lo and behold, the check bounces. I called the lady, or I sent her a certified letter, everything that was required by the county attorney for collections, and there was no response. And so I turned it over to them, and I've learned my lesson. They are so backlogged that I've had to call over the last 4 months. I've had to call, you know, about every 3 or 4 weeks, and, you know, have you made any effort? And of course, they're always too busy, and so basically, then Veronica called me, and this is after the county has the check in the process, calls me and said, well, I'd like to pay you the $200 plus $30 late fee. And I'm like, oh my Lord. And so I called the clerk at the county attorney's office, and she said, oh no, once you turn it over to us, then you can't accept the money. And so then after, you know, going through all this mess and trying to get collected with no response, then the county called me last week and said, well, we probably just need to get you the check back because they waited all this time. And she said, I just visited with the county attorney, and she said that this was a collection for a rental, and that the law didn't apply to rental.